This week, one of the invitations in the sky is to pay attention to the agreements you're keeping, both those you are intentionally keeping and those you may be adhering to unconsciously. Agreements like, I will keep the peace even when it costs me my truth, or I will stay easy, useful, competent, agreeable, and this will keep me safe. Or agreements like, if I have been hurt, I must stay loyal to my anger. Or if I soften my position, I am abandoning myself. Yesterday, August 16th, the moon met Venus in Libra and opened the seventh gate of the Venus ascent, the crown, the gate of sovereignty. And because this gate opens in the sign of Libra, sovereignty immediately becomes relational. Not how do I become completely independent of everyone else, but can I remain fully myself while I'm in relationship? And equally, can I remain capable of relationship while remaining fully myself? I'm Karen Ledesma, and this is the Venus Cycle Midlife's Roadmap, a weekly astrology transmission from the Chalice Path. I'm here to help you relate to astrology not as prediction, but as orientation, a living map for consciously participating in your life, especially through the initiation of midlife. Midlife is not a crisis, it is an initiation. It is the season when old identities dissolve, old patterns stop working, and the body, psyche, and soul begin course correcting us towards self trust, inner authority, and embodied feminine wisdom. In this work, Venus is our organizing field. Her 19-month cycle of descent and ascent offers us a roadmap for tracking what we are being invited to release, reclaim, and embody as we become more fully ourselves. Each month we ask, what are we being invited to attune to, align with, refine, and then allow? These four movements are our core process, the path we walk through every gate of the Venus cycle. Yesterday's gate begins the process of attunement. In the ascent, when Venus meets the newly crescent moon, we attune to the wild dimension of our experience. And here at the crown, this is attunement to wild communion, our direct, unmediated relationship with life and with the sacred, the one that precedes every teacher, doctrine, credential, institution, and identity. We are also in Venus as other territory at its widest here, life itself as beloved. What has been reclaimed for the self through this ascent is opening towards relationship with other people and ultimately with the sacred as life itself, not an escape from our humanity, but as a way of meeting it more fully. From a feminine, embodied perspective, the crown is not simply a spiritual center floating above the rest of the body. It is where the whole system coheres. Everything beneath it, body, desire, will, heart, our voice, and perception participates in forming the identity we ultimately live from. Our core beliefs become organizing agreements. This is who I am. This is how relationship works. This is what I must do to belong. This is what I am allowed to need. This is what happens when someone is angry with me. And this is what happens when I am angry. We don't necessarily encounter these beliefs when everything is going well. We discover them under pressure, during conflict, rupture, when staying connected suddenly asks something difficult of us. This is where sovereignty becomes practice. The previous gate in Virgo was the gate of perception. There we practiced, can I stay with myself as I see? Can I trust what I perceive without abandoning my knowing because someone else experiences reality differently? Now Libra asks the next question. Can I stay with myself as I meet you? Because sovereignty can become distorted in two directions. In one direction, I abandon myself in order to preserve connection. I appease, I disappear, I over accommodate, I make someone else's comfort more important than my own truth. But in the other direction, I become so identified with my own truth, my pain, my anger, or my righteousness that there is no longer room for relationship. I remain so fully inside my own interpretation that I cannot meet the other. The impact of my behavior then becomes secondary to the integrity of my own self-story. So this isn't sovereignty either, but more like self-enclosure. Libra introduces another reality. There are two of us here, two centers of experience, two whole selves, and between us is a relationship, a relational field. In this light, sovereignty doesn't mean that I answer only to myself. It means I remain responsible for myself while remaining capable of relationship. So I don't have to abandon myself to stay connected to you. And I don't have to abandon you in order to stay connected to myself. That's why I keep coming back to the word agreement here for this crown gate. Every relationship rests upon agreements. Some are spoken, but many remain invisible. I won't upset you. I won't need too much. I will carry the emotional weight of the relationship. Or when I'm hurt, you must accept my version of events. Or if I am angry, I no longer have to consider impact. If you challenge my interpretation, you are invalidating me. Sometimes the deepest work of sovereignty is discovering what these unconscious agreements are underneath the conflict. To drive this point home, on August 21st, Venus in Libra opposes Saturn in Aries. If this opposition lands as heaviness, know that this heaviness is not a verdict on you. Saturn is never here to tell you that you got it wrong, but this energy might very well press upon those agreements, the one that we named earlier, so that you can really see which ones are truly sustaining of both self and relationship. Libra and Aries form the self and other axis. Saturn in Aries asks, what is my responsibility to myself? What boundary or self-definition must remain intact? But Venus in her home sign in Libra asks from across the sky, and what are you responsible for because you are in relationship? Not responsible for another person's emotions, responsible to the relationship. And those are two very different things. If we intend to remain in relationship, there are agreements about how rupture is handled, how anger is handled, and how we return. The deeper agreements become visible under stress. When I am angry, what still remains sacred? When we disagree, how do we treat one another? Can I hear information that complicates my own interpretation? Can I allow another person's experience to exist without immediately treating it as a threat to mine? Can I make an agreement with another person without violating the agreement I have with myself? And can I honor myself without violating the agreements that make relationship possible? Every one of these questions is answered by the nervous system before it is answered by the mind. When my own system does not feel safe, this agreement itself registers as danger, and I will defend, appease, or disappear before I have chosen anything at all. So the constant work of sovereignty includes restoring safety within my own nervous system, so that the deeper work of co-regulating with others and with our world becomes possible. Then on August 22nd, the sun reaches the final degree of Leo, meets the South Node, and will move into Virgo, continuing the eclipse story from last week. The South Node in Leo, especially at 29 degrees, can reveal entrenched identities we already know how to inhabit. Leo asks to be seen, but we can become so deeply invested in being seen according to a particular self story. I am the one who was wronged. I am justified. My anger proves I am finally standing up for myself. Anger can and does carry important information about our own boundaries. But eventually, relationship asks a question anger cannot answer alone. What now? What is repair? What responsibility is mine? And what happens after I have taken the time to honor what I feel? Can I remain sovereign without requiring my perspective to become the only legitimate one in the room? Then the sun enters Virgo, and this question becomes wonderfully practical. What do you practice? Virgo season brings us into daily practices, sacred routines, discernment, devotion, the repeated acts through which identity actually becomes embodied. Because sovereignty is built through what you repeatedly practice. What agreement do you keep with your body, your nervous system, your work, your time, your spiritual life, your relationships, and your willingness to repair? The Venus cycle itself is an agreement with life. I will pay attention. I will return. I will work with what is here. I will participate consciously in my becoming. So this week, place both hands gently on the crown of your head and feel the boundary of your own body, your own vertical axis. Contain yourself without closing yourself down and breathe. And then ask, can I stay with myself as I meet the other? Can I remain in conscious relationship with the space between us? And then notice, what agreements am I currently keeping with myself, with others, and with life? Which agreements create integrity? Which require me to disappear? And which ones protect my identity so fiercely that relationship itself becomes impossible? We're in the first phase of this process, attunement. So notice, let the deeper agreements become visible, and carry this with you this week. I do not have to abandon myself to remain in relationship. And I do not have to abandon relationship to remain sovereign. If you are inside the chalice path, bring one or two sentences into the community naming what agreement you are noticing at the gate of sovereignty. And if something in this landed, if you felt a flicker of recognition that this season you are in has a shape and you are not simply lost inside of it, I've made you a free map called Which Chapter of the Midlife Passage Are You In? Take a moment to locate yourself on the timeline, read the guiding question for that chapter, and find yourself there in the question. Thank you for being here for the Venus cycle Midlife's Roadmap. Bring these questions into your body, your journal, your conversations, and the living practice of your week. May this support you as you move through your process. And may you trust the wisdom already moving through your body, your knowing, and your becoming.